All right, welcome in. It's Wednesday. It's time for Full Court Press. Rob Vino, what do they always say, right? Make your free throws. Miami of Ohio last night had a couple of chances to hit our parlay. We had over 86.5. And Ian Elmer missed a couple big ones. And then, of course, Peter Suter just needed to hit both right at the end. Hits the first. They go into a timeout. Comes out. We're one free throw away from hitting the parlay. And of course he misses it. But you know what, Rob? We've had a couple of team totals in the parlay recently that have kind of squeaked over on free throws. So maybe we were due for one of those. I think you're muted, bud.
Frank Martin iced us last night. He took that time
Yeah,
out.
he did.
And the commentators on the game want to tell you how wonderful Peter Suter is. And in my mind, I'm like, don't jinx this kid, please. But hey, listen, he was 7 for 8 from the line. I think it was more Ian Elmer, who, he's an 84% guy who had 3 chances with 2 shot fouls. They were in the bonus quite a bit late in that game and made only 1 of 2 each time. But you can't complain with the 30 points he put up because without those, you're not even close. Great game, great comeback by Miami O. And what a huge effort by UMass, Adam. They were right in that game, and maybe a couple of poor decision shots at last couple of minutes.
Oh, Frank Martin was furious at that step back 3.
That 3. And he had a right to be because they were killing him inside.
Yeah, another close call, Rob, for Miami of Ohio. I'm gonna segue into our feature game today. Sometimes close is fine. Like if you're Miami of Ohio, you keep winning close games. Sometimes close doesn't work. If you're TCU and you find yourself on the wrong end of like every close game that could give you a win that would pretty much, secure your fate into the NCAA tournament. As a bettor, what's the saying, Rob? Horseshoes, hand grenades, and I guess in sports betting too, right? Because like if you've had TCU in a lot of these big games, you've probably cashed tickets. They've been great against the number as a dog in some of these bigger games. But man, looking back, they had chances to win the Michigan game, fell just short. Arizona, they led Arizona at halftime. That final score is a little deceiving, 86-73, because TCU was up 6 at half. BYU, they led for a good portion of the game and lost that game. And of course, Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse in Lawrence, Kansas, they pretty much had the game almost won, and they ended up losing in overtime. So another opportunity here for the Horned Frogs as a big dog on their home court tonight. TCU Houston, is this where the Horned Frogs get their signature win?
Well, they probably wish that Houston hadn't lost to Texas Tech the previous game. And, yesterday we talked a little bit about kind of a double combo play, Adam, and I know somebody commented on it back to you with the, we can't call it full letdown, but the fact that Oklahoma State had come off of a huge win at the buzzer and then traveled to Alabama, where Alabama had come off of a miserable shooting performance. And I just felt like I actually had that game for clients team total up and over, thinking that Alabama would pour it on. We talked about some of the matchup advantages they had against that particular Missouri defense. It worked out. It's almost like you have the same thing here. TCU wins Saturday against Baylor, against all odds. They don't have David Punch, their leading scorer, their leading rebounder. And Jamie Dixon tells you there's an illness running through the team and that they were in scramble mode all day long. I don't know if that's more of a positive. Obviously, it's a positive for TCU to be able to handle the circumstances and come up with the win, but kind of negative towards Baylor, right? You can't beat a team without their best player, with other guys that are, probably sick on the bench playing, and Dixon's telling you that they were kind of scrambling all game long, but they pulled it off. And Houston, I got to go immediately. Kelvin Sampson's one of my favorites, but we got to go immediately to the quotes, because here's where TCU could be in a little bit of trouble tonight. Whether or not it's 8 points worth of trouble, we'll find out. But they lost to Texas Tech in a heartbreaker, right? That season series has been fantastic. Both games, one went Houston's way, one went Tech's way. But this one on Saturday, Texas Tech had an offensive rebounding edge of 21-11 against Houston, which is like sacrilegious in Kelvin Sampson's book. You cannot be beat on the offensive glass by the opponent. He said this. He said, "I'm not going to sit here and complain about the referees when Tech kicked our ass the way they did on the offensive glass. So I'm not into that narrative. I don't even care about the whistle right now. I care about our guys getting better at the things we can get better at. The game came down to one area. That's where they were really good. When they missed the shot, they rebounded the ball and scored 22 points off their misses. That's an area, whatever you think of our program, it's a big reason why we've been so successful." When Kelvin Sampson's angry at his team, there's just no way I'm playing the other side the next game. There's just no way. And especially when you have TCU, who's not necessarily a good rebounding team. Inside of league, I think they rank a 10th in defensive rebound percentage. So you can expect Tugler and these guys tonight for Houston to be all over the boards. Just to follow up on that really quick here, Adam, Jamie Dixon, and again, he was without David Punch, who's his leading scorer, who's his leading rebounder. He doesn't have him in that game Saturday, but he said, "We're really excited about what we did on Saturday, except for the rebounding. Offensively, we were good. We kept attacking, happy with the win." One team didn't rebound well. They got out rebounded pretty good. And they don't rebound particularly well. And Houston, absolutely angry Kelvin Sampson is with this game. I don't know the status on Punch. I tried to find it this morning for certain.
I think he's playing. As far as I know, I think he's going to
Okay.
play. Yeah.
So you've got, and it's been 3 days off for the team to maybe get past the illness that's running through the team. They shot 43 free throws on Saturday. Whether or not they get 43 tonight against Houston is probably questionable at best. But the way that game was played, Adam, the Baylor TCU game, so tight, so high scoring, you would have expected fouls. I think Houston is better in a lot of categories than this team. We're off of a loss here. We don't have anything to go on for this season history. But the last 2 times they've met up, TCU has found it really, really difficult to score. I don't know how much emphasis I can put on those last 2 meetings because you have such different teams each and every year. But I just want to end with this because you started talking about how great the freshmen are in this class across the country. And Kingston Flemings is one of those freshmen.
Yep.
Had 42 in that game against Texas Tech the other day. He's a load to handle along with what they already have. To me, Houston's the better team. They're better in a lot of areas, but we'll see. 8 points, the great equalizer here. I do notice one thing. Houston has been trending over with their team totals. And when I watch them, they do seem to be a little more offensive minded as a group. Maybe the coach doesn't want it that way, but as a group, they like to shoot it a little bit. They should get stuff close to the rim tonight because TCU doesn't defend the rim really well. And Houston is a team that can score off second chances. So for me, I think it would be a slight lean towards Houston here, but I don't like the price tag. I just don't like laying 8. Maybe you shorten this up first half because Houston has been an absolute moneymaker first half wise last 2-3 years. We'll see how it goes.
Well, we're going to do a little swap today, Rob. You came on, made a case for the side. That's usually me. I'm going to come on and make a case for a total. I think this game plays under. TCU, this is not necessarily a terrible matchup for TCU, but you made a great point. It's a bad matchup against Houston anytime they come off of a bad defensive game and a bad rebounding game. And they played one of the worst that granted, you got to tip your cap a little bit to Texas Tech being a really good team and a really good offense, but that was still one of the statistically the worst defensive games Houston has had in the past couple of years, right? In terms of like points per possession. And then you talked about Sampson at the end of the game, talking about getting crushed on the boards and just being overall not happy with the effort for defense and rebounding. Ultimately, what cost them that game, because as you also pointed out, they scored plenty. The offense was fine. Things that are going to be tough for TCU in this game, like I really feel like TCU needs to force turnovers. As you said, like they're not going to be able to totally keep Houston away from the rim. So the way that the way that TCU, I feel like, has given some of these teams like Michigan and Florida and some of the better teams they've played on their schedule trouble is really tight defense on the perimeter, the ability to force turnovers. And Rob Bino, no one turns it over less in college basketball. They're the Houston Cougars, number 1 in the country, 8.1 turnovers a game. That's the lowest mark in the country. They also move the ball incredibly well. Assist to turnover ratio is top 10. And so, like, if you're Houston, I do think you're like equipped to sort of move the ball, in and out of the TCU pressure, not turn it over. And it feels like if you could take care of the basketball against TCU and get into your offense, that there's points to be had there for Houston. But TCU listen, they're at home. They play insanely hard. There is some merit to that, I think. Like, I think they're going to scratch and claw, which definitely is something that, like, helps the under. And then on the other side, let's not totally write off the fact that Houston could just wipe them out. Like, if Houston's totally focused here and Sampson does what he does and gets to his team and is just like, hey, that defense and that rebounding effort was unacceptable and we need to be better here, this could be one of those games where Houston's holding TCU to 20 points in the first half, right? Like that, we've seen that so many times from Houston when they just come out and straight up demoralize a team, hold them under 30, and suddenly they've got control of the game. And now you're looking at a second half where TCU can't force a turnover, and suddenly, you're getting lulled to sleep by a Houston team that's fantastic defensively, that's not going to probably give you many, second chances. And that's not going to give you many turnovers in open play, right? There's very little of that when you play against Houston, the steal that turns into a bucket on the other end. So for me, this is an under. And it's not like I'm not a great totals handicapper. I don't play many of them, but you could not get me to play an over in this game between these two teams, this magnitude, knowing that every possession really, really matters for TCU here. And the way that they tend to get up for these games tells me that, like, they're not going to be okay with just getting run out of their own building. So I'll take the under here, Rob.
Yeah, and just earlier I had said, Adam, that the last couple of times they've played, Houston's won. One was at the end of 2024, I think, maybe in the Big 12 in the Big 12 tournament. But point to that is, in those two games, TCU scored 45 and 46. And I said I don't want to place a lot of emphasis on that because teams change; they evolve so quickly in modern day college hoop. But it could be where Jamie Dixon just hasn't been able to figure out or have the personnel to go up against a Houston team. That's pretty bad, 45 and 46 in back-to-back matchups, whether they be one from 2 years ago, one from a year ago, or whenever. It could just be a matchup. I want to ask you one thing, because you did go on, I'm not going to call it a rant, but a little bit of a
fired up here. A lot of caffeine so far this morning, Rob.
Well, and I'm going to point to yesterday.
I'm pissed. I was up late watching UNLV get destroyed last night. So I'm all ready to go this morning.
Well, yesterday you started bringing up the March Madness point about how we're going to hear a lot of Ken Pom rankings, teams that rank inside of the top 25, et cetera, in certain categories. Houston, 15 in offensive efficiency, 7 in defensive efficiency, 6th best in the country at not turning it over, 4th best at turning teams over. They've got a ton of these numbers here that maybe sit them inside that grouping that we're going to hear an awful lot about from others the next couple of months.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a good one. 9 p.m. national TV. Certainly, we're getting to that part of the year, Rob Vino, where these big time home games, I will bump it an extra point for home court. Like once we get to like late January, February, that's not going to be an easy task to go in there and win. But Ocho says Houston back to regular scheduled programming, under and probably hitting their, first half. Ski Profits probably already got a Houston first half bet in after that. This is like the tailor-made spot for him to bet to bet first half for Houston in like a bounce back spot. We'll have to see if he's on that. I know he's done like extremely well with that angle the last couple of years. So going to be a good one. Big national TV game. Let's go to another big national TV game here, Rob. The chat is starting to throw opinions out on Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia, Tennessee. There's when you get this many games and then you start getting games moved from one day to another, you have to I had to second guess myself and make sure that the correct teams were playing. Because of course you and I talked about Texas, Georgia. We had similar colors on Saturday. I gave that one out on last call with you and Kelly in Vegas, and Texas ended up getting there in that game. Second half in that game, Texas really clamped down on the defensive end. Georgia started to, they really denied transition. You put Georgia, Rob, in that half court offense, and you can beat this Georgia team. And what better team to do that than the Tennessee Vols right here? So I feel like if I liked Texas against Georgia, I kind of have to like Tennessee against Georgia here. What do you think about this one?
Well, and I'll add to your case. We just saw Tennessee do the same exact thing to the same exact style. They put Alabama in a box in Coleman on Saturday, only allowed 73 points. We saw what Bama can do offensively last night, but they were 6 for 26 in that game against Tennessee. So it's not, it's not rare or unique, but it's not all that often where you get to come back and play the same exact style within 3 days. So Tennessee, we know, is well equipped for this. And I don't know, like you said, that Georgia's equipped enough to handle it. Georgia wants open floor. I saw that game the other day with Georgia and against Texas, and they were up early and it was low scoring early, very low scoring. Nobody could make a shot, but Georgia held somewhat of a lead, 2, 4 points, whatever. And then once Texas found the basket and started making shots, Georgia had no answers really offensively. They could not get anything to fall. They didn't get the same amount of clean looks that they get on a regular basis. And I'm with you. I don't know that they get it here. I know Rick Barnes, it just comes with reputation with this team, right? We just expect them to be top 3 defensive team every single year. And although they're good, they haven't been that to this point. Like, they haven't been consistent enough for me to just say Tennessee is one of the best defensive teams in the nation like we could in the past. But that game Saturday could have been the start of something here. We talk often about how these coaches work their teams. These good coaches work their teams into better performance as the season goes on. This could be the case with Tennessee. I have harped a little bit, and not recently, but a little while back, about how I thought maybe Jacoby Gillespie was in over his head at this level. Played Maryland last year, was okay, but surrounded by a ton of talent. Here again, surrounded by talent, but the best player on the team, Nate Amon, is a freshman. But Gillespie's been great, Adam. I think it's like 8 or 9 straight 20-plus games now, and he's shooting the 3 very well. So he's everything as advertised. I don't know. Tennessee's starting to look like a team that may not have a true weakness. Felix Akpara, obviously, been around a little bit, and they crashed the boards. I think you mentioned yesterday how good they are rebounding as a team, number 1 in the nation, offensive rebound percentage. So this is a tough matchup for Georgia. I guess it's a lot of explanation that I'm giving here as to why it's tough for Georgia in this game and should be advantageous to the Volunteers. I don't know that the schedule maker, the fact that they had to make it up, does anything to hinder Tennessee's pattern, but it's strange to me that Tennessee would open 1 and suddenly become a 1.5 point underdog after what we just saw and after what I just described here. To me, it's got to be Tennessee here. I don't know. I don't understand the money in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, I was totally out on this Tennessee team. It was a Tuesday night. I was out in Syracuse drinking beers, which I never ever do on a weeknight, but Syracuse had just knocked off Tennessee. We left the dome, we went to the bars, and I was texting you. I said, "Yeah, I'll be ready in the morning, but this Tennessee team sucks." I was out on Tennessee. I was like, they just got punched in the mouth by Cuse. They couldn't score on Cuse's defense. I said Gillespie can't play up. I was out on this Vols team for a while earlier this year, and I'm coming around on them. That was really impressive. Listen, I know Alabama was missing some guys over the weekend, but I've always been like a Bama depth guy, right? I never really like totally downgrade Alabama for having a guy or 2 out. And Tennessee was awesome on the boards. Defended, 6 for 26 from 3 for Bama. And like you said, it's a similar, like if you can do that to Alabama, theoretically, you should have success doing that for Georgia. And I think Tennessee's just upped the intensity over the last few weeks. The defense has been so much better. They look like a Rick Barnes like Tennessee team that has been one of the good Tennessee teams. During the Barnes tenure, the last few years, the teams that get into the NCAA tournament and are dangerous, and that's what they've looked like the past couple weeks. So for me, I could only play Tennessee here. Now, yes, you could theoretically have a letdown spot. You just got the huge win over Alabama. Now you get a turnaround. You're still on the road against Georgia. Georgia was up 7 in that game at halftime against Texas. So they really did play a good first half. Like I was sitting there watching that game and I was like, man, like I really thought Georgia was going to struggle. They go out, put up 37 points in the first half. But when Texas made those defensive adjustments in the second half, it was game over. It was quickly game over. Georgia couldn't do anything offensively, and that 7-point lead turned into a 20-point deficit rather quickly as the second half wore on. So I kind of trust Tennessee to do the same thing. I don't know if it will be to that magnitude where they go in and just blow Georgia out. But you want to talk about, like, this was they were a 2-point dog. I think I saw Colin in the chat said you could have got 2.5 a few minutes ago. I think this might be a little bit of a wrong team favored situation here. I just don't think Georgia is better than Tennessee at this point. And stylistically, this matchup does Georgia no favor. So lean Vols here for me.
Yeah, the only drawback, and maybe I'm making a lot out of a one-game situation where they beat Alabama, same style as Georgia, but they were just one game removed from losing to Kentucky. And now I could justify that by saying, hey, they lost to Kentucky, but they were off double OT to Texas A&M, played their hearts out. Okay. But after what we saw of Kentucky again last night, I mean, that's a bad loss at this point. But I'm in agreement with you. We're trying to be a little bit proactive here, projecting where this team is going. And I think Tennessee, off of that battle Saturday, looks like they're on the right track. And again, stylistically, these games, just like boxing, matchups make these games, not necessarily overall season numbers. So I kind of lean Tennessee myself.
Yeah, no beers have been drank in Central New York since. It is just a total disaster. Syracuse Twitter's on fire this morning. We got Judah Mintz tweeting now, basically just airing out that they never asked Kadir Copeland to come back. And it's just got to burn it down. Fire everyone. Start over. Bring in Jerry McNamara to be the coach. It's just bad for Syracuse basketball right now. But we'll that's a conversation for a different day. Of course, they don't play today. Let's go to Garth. We're going to go to the Mid-East here. That's what this conference is this year. Everyone's mid. No one's good. You could even say that UConn might, it's like the bad basketball might be rubbing off on UConn at this point, that they just have to play these like bad teams not bad. Bad is the wrong word. Mid is the perfect way to describe all of these teams, Rob Dino, because and here's as mid of a matchup as you're going to find. You got DePaul, who in other years would probably be at the bottom of this league, but they're actually one of the better teams this year, now up to 4-5 in league play. And then you have Georgetown, which to me has been a massive disappointment. Like they're flying under the radar, Rob, for one of the biggest disappointments in this league, because I really thought Ed Cooley maybe had a squad this year and was going to surprise in this conference. And then you see how bad some of the other teams in this league have been relative to expectations. Yet you pull up the standings, Rob Bino, and Georgetown is down there at 2-7 in league play. So this game becomes a bit of a mind F for me, right? Because it's like, I can't quite wrap my head around how Georgetown could be this bad. And then they get into conference play and they can't beat teams that are having historically bad years. But DePaul has been better than advertised. Garth says DePaul, thoughts on DePaul, Georgetown. He likes DePaul plus the points here. DePaul is a perfect 5-0 against the spread on the road, while Georgetown is 1-9 at home. Yeah, no one goes to Georgetown games. They were giving out free tickets last year to a couple of these. So, Rob, talk to me about this mess in DC tonight.
Yeah, and they got off of that string of losses by beating Providence the other day in Providence, which was probably even less of a mid matchup than what this will be. I'm going to agree with Garth here. I mean, from what we see of DePaul, and I had Seton Hall the other day, Adam. I took a chance that Seton Hall could go to DePaul, could frustrate them with their defense. I know Seton Hall can't shoot. I know it even more so now. But I thought maybe in a low-scoring game they could win that one. They're about a 2.5-point favorite. They didn't win. They didn't come close to winning, in all honesty. They were never, I don't know, from mid-first quarter, I'd have to look, or from mid-first half, I'd have to look it up exactly. They were never in control or even ahead in that game. DePaul had the lead all the way. And what Chris Holtman's doing there is pretty good. I mean, you watch him a few times this year and you realize that they're not the most talented group in the league, but they're certainly good enough on each end. Like they're good enough offensively. They're a little better than that on defense, which is kind of Holtman's calling card. So you can make that case for you have one team that's going to scrap like crazy, like what I saw against Seton Hall the other day. And if you can scrap with Seton Hall and beat them by 7, then you can certainly scrap with Georgetown, which I don't know, they're more finesse than attitude or physicality this season. If I'm going to play a game like this, I'm going to lean that way to the team that I know that's going to give me 40 energized minutes. DePaul actually, here's what the best way to put it into a nutshell, Adam, is that DePaul actually, I think, confidence wise, mindset wise, actually is starting to think they're pretty good in this league. And when you
Yeah.
start to think you're pretty good, all of a sudden you become pretty good. And against the average talent level in this particular league, there's just no way I could play Georgetown, even though they did knock off Providence. It was just one of those who's going to get the ball last, who's going to make the last shot, 81-78, typical Providence type game. But I would be with Garth here. I would have to try DePaul if I was going to play. I didn't, but I definitely like a lot more what I'm seeing out of DePaul than Georgetown.
I'm with you on that. I think this is a reasonable statement. I think it's reasonable to say DePaul DePaul is the best team in this conference relative to expectation this year. And like you can listen, I know UConn's sitting there at 20-1, but they have not had an impressive performance in a very long time. That UConn team. I mean, they are super fortunate to not have lost as a double digit favorite like at least twice in the past 3 weeks. So yeah, I get it. UConn's 20-1 and it's about wins and losses, and that's great. But I would think that if you even went into Danny Hurley, into Danny Hurley's office and asked him like about his team, like you've pulled up the quotes, Rob. He's not impressed with that team. You go down the list, like St. John's Twitter came at me for saying that the team was kind of trashed the other day, and they went out and almost lost to Xavier. I don't know what they've done to like get put back into the top 25, but they've been disappointing, in my opinion. And it's like right down the list. So you see a team like DePaul, yeah, they're only 4-5 in conference, but this is a team that's been a perennial bottom feeder in the Big East for years. Holtman, like they're the one team that I think is like on the rise while everyone else is sort of falling. And then you've got like obviously the UConns and St. John's that are just getting by being like just a little bit better than the rest of the like the teams that aren't very good in this league. So I do think DePaul has flown under the radar to an extent because everyone's like, oh, well, the Big East is just bad, right? Like that's the statement that pretty much anyone's going to make about this league like this year. It's, oh, the Big East is bad. Well, that might be true, but DePaul has gone from a one in, most Big East years, Rob, it like in recent memory, DePaul would probably be like 1-9 in conference play right now. They're 4-5, and that's Holtman slowly, like finally changing the culture, I think, a little bit with this program. So yeah, I think they're the team in this league right now that I'm interested in backing. And so as an underdog against it, remember, Georgetown won that game. I think they nearly blew like a 20-point lead to a Providence team that is arguably the worst, most, I mean, you want to talk about a team that maybe is going to punt on the rest of the season, right? Like Providence is just a train wreck right now. And Georgetown nearly loses that game, has to put in a bunch of effort to fend off this crazy comeback from Providence. Yeah, I would not want any part of Georgetown as a favorite here. And they have zero home court advantage, less than zero. They have no fan base anymore. And they play in an NBA arena in DC, and they have a hard time even getting it half full. So yeah, Garth, I'm with you. I can see the reasoning behind DePaul.
So Georgetown revenge from a 56-50 loss is not a consideration in our minds. Adam, that game is so strange. When you were talking, you said something that triggered it. So I went back and just checked the box. In that game, Georgetown scores 15 points in the second half. It's a 56-50 final, but they get beat 24-15 in the second half. They go 1 for 12 from 3, 11 for 41 from the field. I don't know. Those numbers, obviously, regression wise, you got to return to the mean somewhere. But DePaul's offensive numbers were just as bad. So if theirs progress upward as well, and now You have the situation where we're mid-season and DePaul's just playing better. I don't know. There's just not a case to make for Georgetown here.
Yeah, the chat makes some interesting comments, that might be so that was I'm just going back to that. I think I had it a little bit backward. Georgetown was getting destroyed, and so they did need they didn't have to hold off a big lead. They came back and beat Providence over the weekend. That's right. They were down huge, but still 56 points in the second half. It still took a huge effort. I could see what Bayou and some of the folks are saying in the chat that could be a season turner, if you will, to sort of get that to win in that fashion, to snap a 6-game losing streak. But I don't know. I feel like I've seen this story a couple times in the Big East this year where it's like, oh, like this is the result that turns their season around. And then the next game, the team that won is just back to being, to disappointing. So I don't know. I don't know if I see it the same way. It'll be an interesting game. I think I lean with Garth in the points, but yeah, it's probably not one that's going to make my card. But Rob Bino, I do have one on the card. I'm probably going to have a bunch, and the one is a 5%er. So I know, I don't know if our friend that was here the other day would remind you that I lost a 5%er over the weekend. Yeah, it happens. I've actually had some bad luck on like the 5%ers. I got daggered by a buzzer beater 3 on one earlier this month, which was frustrating. But hey, went 2-1 last night. There's a spot that I absolutely love tonight, and so that's going to be a 5%er. You can get that on its own, but like when you start doing the math and you see what WagerTalk charges for the 5%er, you probably should just buy the package that gets you like 3 days every single play. Becomes a far less or much more cost effective is what I'm trying to say. So all of my plays, all of Rob's plays for the next 3 days. And if you get it today, you get the 5%er, which Rob Bino, some would say I'm due to win one. You can always look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, that's the way we want to look at it, with some positivity around here. I looked it up this morning to make sure. Double the CBB firepower. I think I have this straight now. Double the CBB firepower is the package Adam's referring to. You can find it on either one of our pages. You can find it over at wagertalk.com. Once again, 3 days, every selection that we get. And I'll just reiterate this, Adam. Well, I think what's great about the package, and I don't want to go ahead and try to sound so glowingly, but I think the beauty of the package is that I play a lot of totals. Adam plays a lot of sides. You get a really good mix of both. For the season since December the 1st, again, this is now a 7.5-week stretch, up over 42 units, almost 42 and a half units, playing small size wagers. So tonight is a night where Adam has a 5%er. And guys, I haven't had this except on a Saturday card. Half a dozen plays tonight. This board just looks really, really good.
Tons of games
tonight. We're getting into a spot in the season, which I would generally refer to as the sweet spot of the season, where you can pick out not only fundamental, but situational stuff. Now, we've seen enough. We got a big enough sample size. So once again, if you're looking to purchase, like Adam says, hey, you could go all out for one play, or you could pay about $15 more and get 3 days worth of both of us. So double the CBB firepower, 3 days worth of all our CBB best bets at a low price of $59.
All right, let's get back to it. Mad Max wants to go. He says he usually fades a team off a big win, but Texas and Auburn are both coming off big wins. So, Rob Bino, we're going to go back to the SEC. Which team do you think the line is inflated towards? Well, I don't know if it's really inflated towards either. I want to go up here and just get the current line, which is like finding a needle in a haystack today, Rob. Without
it's
the ability
693, 694.
That's it. Kelly has trained us to come to the Saturday show ready with rotation numbers. It's like, she's like, I need the rotation numbers. So 693, 694. You're looking at Auburn about a 6.5 point favorite. So Texas on the road as an underdog. I guess what I'll throw to you here, Rob, is like, this was about what Texas was when I played them last week at Kentucky. I think I was getting 7. They covered that game. Failed to win, but they covered. I didn't think they played particularly well, which is why I went back to the well with Texas over the weekend in a game that they played really good in the second half and won. That being said, like, I look at Auburn right now. I like Auburn more than I like Kentucky right now. So from a line inflated standpoint, if I think Auburn is better than Kentucky, maybe the line, maybe Texas is the team that's getting a little more love because of like the recent, the cover and the win. I don't know. Like I think this might be a better matchup for Auburn. Maybe the line is right. What do you say about this one, Rob Vino?
Well, I think if I'm just narrowing it down to where I think there could be an advantage for Auburn, A, obviously home floor. And B, I just think there's more offensive weaponry on the Auburn side when they're right. Like Pettiford can go off. Hall has shown to be able to go off. What interested me Saturday, Adam, inside the numbers, is that they held their own with Florida on the glass in that victory. And Florida, generally speaking, should have an edge on everybody with their front line. But Chinaloo did not dominate the way we've seen him dominate as far as rebounding is concerned. So the head coaching matchup here, Stephen Pearl, Sean Miller, really good. Sean Miller, obviously a ton of experience taking teams into venues like this. So I'd have to give him half a bonus point there. And then the game against Georgia isn't necessarily the same game that it will be against Auburn. Yes, Auburn will pick up pace for sure. And sometimes Auburn does get a little bit scrambled, hectic, throwing up shots that you got to call timeout and say, what are we doing here? But when they're under control, they're really good. They're probably top 4 or 5 in this league when they're right. So I think there's more upside to Auburn than there is to Texas at this point. And I think the reason why I say that is I just don't, when I watch Texas offensively, and yes, they racked up 57 second half points the other day in the game that you won on Saturday. I mean, offensively, they couldn't throw it in the ocean in the first half. And then because Georgia plays at such pace and the game got away, they started getting a ton of shots and they made a ton of shots. But I don't know if that goes on the road with them here. So it's a really good offensive efficiency team. It's hard to argue with the overall numbers. But from what I see, I just think Auburn's the better offensive team at this point in time. And to me, that would be the separator. I'd probably take points. I got to be honest with you. I'd probably take points here because I think these teams are kind of that close. They're within 6.5, 7 points in my mind, no matter where they play the game.
Rob Vino, I just double checked and had to make sure. My number on this is 6.35. So I came out pretty much right on the nose with what Vegas is at 6.5. I like Texas, like I've talked about this the last week or so. I did think that Sean Miller, we kind of had a good laugh about some of his quotes, and I said, man, that stretch where they beat Vandy and they beat Alabama really felt like it was the turning point of their season. We brought that up in the last handicap with Georgetown. Like maybe those wins were the turning point of Texas's season. They went out and played what I thought was like pretty poorly against Kentucky. I felt like it was a little bit fortunate to stay within the number in that game because I didn't think they played their best game, but came out and played great over the weekend. My fear for them here would be Vokatitis getting into foul trouble, because you talked about Auburn's offense. I think Texas might have a little bit of trouble defending that. And if you can get him off the floor, that is a huge advantage because they really don't have the depth at that position, in my opinion. Like he is like the key to that team. And if Auburn can get him in the foul trouble or just kind of take it to him, as you said, the offense, like I was so impressed with Auburn over the weekend. I did not see that coming. I did not see them going into the swamp and coming away with a win. So yeah, I mean, theoretically, could they have a letdown? Maybe. But I just think they're kind of playing good ball right now. So I don't really want to play against Auburn. The number's right. I wish I had more for you there. I think I would lean finding a way in with Auburn, whether that be like, see if they get off to a slow start, bet them live, see if they're down at halftime, bet them second half. My gut tells me Auburn wins this game. Maybe find something to pair it with that's in the same sort of ballpark. My buddy Aaron Kidd was texting me, George Mason is a good parlay leg. So who knows, maybe a George Mason to Auburn type deal. But yeah, I don't know if this is the spot I want to back Texas as a dog. I think Auburn probably gets it done at home.
Yeah, and let me just, because again, I love talking these games out a little bit because you didn't jog my memory about Saturday with Kelly when I presented that Sean Miller quote. Exact words, we fouled the SHIT out of anybody.
Yep.
Auburn happens to be the second best team in SEC play this year in free throw rate. Again, Pettiford, Hall, these guys can get to the line. Texas, although they won Saturday, they lost the free throw attempt battle against Georgia by 13. Georgia got to the line 25 more times, and Texas only got there 12. If you're going to foul Auburn, and Sean Miller, I mean, again, I read the quotes. He tells you that's their biggest problem. They can't defend without fouling. And if that happens tonight, and especially in a game, if maybe they're behind and you get some extension, Auburn's not the worst free throw shooting team in the world at 75.5%. So, yeah, that could come up so clutch here, Adam. Again, when you zero in on these matchups and just think of the type of athletes that Auburn has offensively, you do wonder if Texas gets themselves into trouble with fouls tonight.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. So many good games tonight, Rob. I mean, there, as you were saying, this is it's a ton of potential here. I'm gonna have like more than just the 5%er. I probably have 10 that I'm giving serious consideration to, and I'll be like trying to pare down throughout the day. Aaron Pauling watches the show pretty much every day. He DM'd us last night and he said, "Hey guys, I may not be able to watch the show live tomorrow, but can you get one in for me?" And he doesn't request the games very often, so I said, "Yeah, I've 100% got you. We'll get yours into the show." So I want to go to the game that he requested last night. Rob, I'm going to let you kick this one off because this is right in your wheelhouse. He likes Valpo first half. So as a Belmont guy, I need to know if you co-sign that or if you think the Bruins are the right side in this first half or the game or the total, however you see in this one.
Yeah, first thing we'll do is make sure we get the first half lineup. Full game, Belmont is 4.5 now, been bet down a little bit. But first half number, guys, bear with me. Like Adam says, these rotations are so long. And Kelly had told us about a trick, Control F or something. I'm so technologically disadvantaged that I don't even know how to do Control F.
Control F only works when you don't have 17 screens open and you're on that screen. So yeah. I mean, you can Control F, but like I've got like all this stuff open. It doesn't always work like that. Yeah, I know.
Belmont is a 1.5 2-point first half favorite.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that's where we're starting here. For Aaron Pauling's question. Listen, Valpo has given Belmont trouble over the last couple of years, surprisingly enough. They gave him trouble the first time in this game, 78-74, Belmont at home. I just want to start by saying Nick McLean is one of the key components to this Belmont team. He hasn't played in 5 games. He didn't play in that Valpo game the first time around. Not sure he's going to play tonight. I say all that because Belmont is 5-0 straight up without McLean. Just to show you how good they've been this season. Casey Alexander's team has found ways. Saturday, they win against Illinois State. Tyler Lundblade, their best shooter, doesn't even have a good game, 2 for 9 from 3. I feel like there's some offensive bounce back potential here for Belmont, despite scoring 80 the other day. That might sound a little crazy. How are you going to bounce back from an 80? But they did that 80 pretty quietly against a very good Illinois State team, which is number 1 in defensive efficiency in the Missouri Valley Conference play this season. So Belmont's got all the offensive tools, but for whatever reason, Valpo, like I say, they've given them fits last few times. And I wouldn't be surprised if they did it again. Valpo had been on a stretch, Adam, where their team total was going over by quite a bit. And then it kind of, the train kind of halted the last couple of games. So I don't know if that's odds makers figuring them out a little bit or if it's Valpo just going through a slump. I can't take it with Valpo in the first half against Belmont. However, if I just put that aside and tell myself that this team, for whatever reason, has become a difficult matchup and now they're at home in a revenge spot, I could certainly see the idea to take Valparaiso just to win the first half straight up and see what happens full game. To me, it's a really difficult play. I think that total in the first half for Aaron Pauling, I know he asked about side, but I think that total might be low. 67.5, 68 in a Belmont game against a team that has shown offensive capability and a team that plays really good offense against them in particular. There's game film, Adam, right? There's tape. We can make adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. But this matchup has been a little bit repetitive the last 2, 3 times. So for me, I think my best look would be first half over. I'm not going to talk Aaron off of playing the Valpo side because I don't have a good enough case for Belmont. But I do find those couple of things interesting. Mainly the fact that they're winning these games without Nick McLean. That shouldn't really be happening for Belmont, but it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make. Like they've been without McLean. The other thing that interests me, Rob, that maybe tilts me toward the Valpo side and agreeing with Aaron is that Valpo's shooting splits have been worse on the road all year, which is not like a crazy thing to say. I think you could make the case most teams shoot it better in their home gym, but I know at least early in the year, earlier, maybe at like 3 weeks ago, when because this came up at some point, the splits were fairly drastic for Belmont at home and on the road. Now, some of that could have evened out, but I do find it very interesting that this team is still 8-1 on the road, despite the fact that offensively they've been poor, like they've been worse on the road, and they've been without McLean, who theoretically should matter at some point. Like at some point,
Yeah.
you're gonna probably lose a game. Like not having Nick McLean is supposed to matter. Now, Belmont, I'm just going to their recent games. They've rattled off 5 straight wins. Really good one over the weekend, beating Illinois State. Of course, that was a home game. Valpo, the reason I haven't wanted to touch Valpo at all and sort of trust them, Rob, is offensively they're not very good. Like they're outside the top 300 in a lot of like offensive metrics, but they've been pretty good at home and they shoot it much better at home. So it is a very interesting game. I do subscribe to the theory that maybe they match up well with Belmont, that they had a decent showing against them the first time, and maybe you get their home run effort at home. The things that concern me are the fact that they're outside the top 300 in points per game, field goal percentage. They don't hit many outside shots. They're not going to have a rebounding advantage on Belmont. The one thing that they do well is take care of the basketball. Belmont can be pretty sloppy. Belmont 314th nationally, 12.9 turnovers per game this year. So, like, I definitely think Belmont's going to get themselves in trouble on the road at some point. I just don't know that I have the guts to take Valpo here because I just think that there's a pretty big gap between these two teams. But I'm picking up what you guys are putting down a little bit when it comes to the matchup. So, Aaron, if you take that one, good luck. I won't be betting against you. I'll tell you that much. I'm not going to bet against you there. All right, so we've got one more. Rob Vino, we're going to do this. We have one more super chat requested game. So I'm going to go to the Florida game, and then we'll go parlay legs. That should take us right to the top of the hour. So let's go. Let me just make sure I've got this correctly. Why can I not read this? Oh, bounce back came for Florida, Rob Vino. We just talked about Auburn. They go into the swamp and win over the weekend. Now Florida is a big favorite to bounce back and get back in the win column. Do you also see them covering a big number tonight?
You can see me here trying to get okay. The short answer to that is yes. I feel like South Carolina is probably in a little bit of trouble here. Game has been pushed from an opener of 12 up to 13. But again, some of the things that happened against Auburn on Saturday, I just don't believe can be done by South Carolina to this team, home floor or not. If Florida had been on a really good run, Adam, and I think you said earlier that you didn't see that game coming out of Auburn. And I think mainly the reason why I didn't see that game coming is how great Florida had been playing as of late. They ran off a set of victories over Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Vandy, LSU. I know some of those teams in there, including LSU and Oklahoma, are not the best of the SEC best. But the Vanderbilt win on the road, the Tennessee crushing at home by 24 points, beating Georgia by 15. It just looked like Florida was back. Like I had made the comment Saturday that the guards look to be cohesive now. Remember, the guards were the issue to start the year. We knew the front line was going to be good. As I said earlier, with Chinaloo on the boards, it wasn't a great game. I would expect that gets a lot better here tonight. Florida's better in every capacity than South Carolina is. And when they're off a loss like that, I just feel like this is a get right special for the Florida Gators. I totally agree with the money move in this one. For what it's worth, South Carolina's just been on a descent ever since they hit conference play. Got to win over Oklahoma. Got to win over LSU without Deaton Thomas. I don't know exactly what South Carolina brings to the table here. They're coming in off a 23-point loss to A&M. So for me, they probably get killed on the boards. For me, Boogie Fland and the guards probably, Xavier Lee probably have a good night against the South Carolina guards. Just a tough matchup, Adam, and a tough situation. When you can combine fundamentals with situation, I think you got a pretty solid play. And Florida's got no problem. Really quick here, if you're afraid of 13, they've got no problem getting to 90, 95, which makes 13 look kind of small when you can score that many.
Yeah, it's a big number, but as I said, I was really starting to listen. Florida has been like incredibly efficient offensively this year, and that is with Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland struggling for like 2 months. So I always kind of, I think what's come up on the show a couple times. I know we talked about it after they beat Vandy and dropped 98 on the Commodores, and the game before put up 96. I think they were in a run of scoring 90 plus in 4 straight games. I know I said, man, like this team is pretty efficient offensively with Lee missing shots and with Bland missing shots. Imagine they ever come around a little bit. Imagine their backcourt ever really starts hitting shots and playing the way that they were expected to play this year. And that's essentially what they did for 5 games up until over the weekend when, they just got punched in the mouth a little bit by Auburn. But as we said, like that's an Auburn team that's played really good ball of late. And that's not this South Carolina team at all. I don't even think South Carolina, if Florida's having a bad day, is equipped to like withstand what the Florida front court is going to do. And then you throw in the fact that maybe the guards have a little bit of a bounce back game from the weekend. I'm with you, Rob. This one could get ugly quick. Like I would want no part of South Carolina here. I kind of think Florida probably bounces back. And Bayou makes a good point. If I don't know how to apply this really, but if you did like something like first half, second half, Bayou says if the Gamecocks ain't covering early, they're not covering late. I kind of agree with that. If they get down big, I kind of think this one just becomes a 25-point beatdown at some point.
Yeah, Todd Golden is not one of those coaches who's going to feel sorry for anybody last 5 minutes of a game. They're going to continue to extend margin. Adam, when you were scrolling right there, I just saw quick out of the corner of my eye. Somebody had my parlay leg game up there, so let me get.
All right, yeah, we've already talked about mine, so we'll give your leg the full treatment. Who you got?
All right, so tonight, generally speaking, 80% of the time on the show, I've usually had some form of total and mostly team total. But tonight, I'm going to go back. Aaron, right? Aaron Pauling is the one who asked about the Missouri Valley.
Yes.
And he asked in particular first half. And it just so happens that my play here is going to be first half. And it's going to be Miami of Florida, -4.5 against Stanford. I tried Saturday afternoon to play the Cal Stanford game over 145.5. I thought that was just extremely low. And it should have really got there, tell you the truth. It got to 143, but Stanford just went ice cold last 2-3 minutes. Now, you play that game based on Okori, in my part, thinking that the point guard could do enough damage. I think I made that comment with you and Kelly on Saturday. But what I'm noticing more and more is that the loss of Chisholm Okpara here is just too much for Stanford to overcome. Listen, they don't rebound well to begin with. And to lose him for the remainder of the season, his 28.5 minutes, from what I saw Saturday against Cal, this is going to become a guard-oriented team with one guy who can do damage. And then you're not good on the glass. And then you're not good at shooting threes. And then you're not good at playing defense. And this thing could steamroll downhill really fast for Stanford remainder of the season. Cal winds up winning that game by 11. You have cross-country travel, right? West to east here, one of those 3 time zone deals for Stanford to set up shop for this, I think, 2-game road trip. And Miami, for what it's worth, prides themselves this year on physicality. Like when you listen to the head coach talk, it's always, we're a physical team. We're a physical team. And they're a pretty good offensive team too. I mean, they can crank out 80 fairly quickly. So to me, First half is the spot I really want to attack here, Adam. I think Stanford off the plane, off the Cal game, first 20 minutes, maybe a little lackadaisical. I'm playing a little bit situational there. And then on the fundamental side, I just think Miami's better at every single thing. Stanford's got some work to do. And it might be, we're at midseason. It might be too late to have any answers for what they're going to do without Akpar because I don't know watching Saturday exactly what their identity is anymore, other than give the ball to your point guard, let them go. Miami can defend pretty well out on the perimeter, so he's gonna have a bullseye on his chest the remainder of the season. If you can calm him down a little bit, like I say, first half, I think there might be a little lull out of Stanford. Maybe they make some second half adjustments. I don't even know what those could be, but I'm going to lay 4.5. I just thought that number was so small. 4.5 first half with Miami of Florida at home against Stanford.
Yeah, Rob, I found this game to be very, very interesting. I went in looking to make a case for Stanford plus the points because I had a feeling that Stanford would come out, play some zone defense. Miami really isn't a great shooting team, and that is the way you beat them. But you talk about Okpara and the fact that he has not been there for now 3 games, and Stanford's interior defense really suffers without him. Their rim protection, and so like I guess theoretically you could offset that a little bit by sitting in his zone and just hope Miami misses every shot. But if Miami can work their way into your zone a little bit, that is a big problem for Stanford. This Miami team, 10th nationally, 51.1% from the field. Like if they're able to get anywhere near the rim in this game, they might be able to score at will on Stanford. So that to me was easy enough for me to throw it out. Without Okpara, I just don't have much of an interest because again, even if Stanford does force Miami into some threes, Miami, really good rebounding team. Stanford outside the top 250 in total rebounds this year. So this might be a scenario where, yeah, maybe Miami misses some shots and then they're just cleaning up misses because Stanford really doesn't have much resistance on the rim. So, I threw it out because of Akpar not being there, but I think you could get me to come around to your, point of view here where without him and then you throw in cross-country travel, it could be a tough one for Stanford. I will be rooting for you because I want to hit the parlay. Of course, not going to have action in that game, but just the conversation itself, Rob, has pretty much talked me off of wanting anything to do with Stanford in this matchup.
Well, then defensive free throw rate, real quick here. Stanford puts teams in ACC play on the line. It's an 18-team league. They're 18th in defensive free throw rate. So any penetration by Miami could end up in points, whether they make a shot or not. And then, like you say, I just after watching that game, I feel like they're going to get to the glass because they pride themselves on physicality against this Stanford team. So Miami gets to the line, 4th most in ACC play. Pretty good matchup there for them. We'll see how it goes. I need Miami by 5, Adam. We need Miami by 5 first half. So let's go get them.
Yes, we do. And Miami for what they've looked a little disjointed against the zone at points in time this year, but they do move the ball. Like their ball movement is relatively pretty good. And again, I didn't even really look at it from the standpoint, Rob, where they just need to get the ball up on the rim. And if it doesn't go in the first time, there's a good chance it's going in. With just being bigger, stronger, more physical inside, and then Stanford really missing Okpara in this matchup. So I will be rooting for you on Miami, and I'm going to close the parlay out with the Tennessee Vols. The reason I'm going to use Tennessee, I think I may have missed the number to make it a client play. But in a parlay, I really think Tennessee is just the better team in a matchup that suits them. What are we? Is it can we get +1 still? I guess it doesn't really matter. +1 or pick. What are you seeing for this? I think I see a little bit of both.
I see in this write-in game. Yeah, I see a little bit of both. You're right. There's 1.5 picks, 1.5s.
Yep.
Some
All right,
ones.
we'll split
I guess we could go in split the difference.
We'll split the difference. Tennessee +1 looks like it's out there quite a few places. So
yep.
I would have loved to. I would have loved to have that +2, +2.5 that seems to have evaporated. But again, I don't think it's going to matter. I think, Colin, shout out Colin. He says Trig's been seeing the SEC well too. Yeah, I swept in the SEC last night, Alabama and Arkansas, then took it on the chin out west. UNLV lost by 100. That was just a bad call. But yeah, we'll go back to the SEC for the parlay. We'll say Tennessee +1. BA Bets just jumped in with a donation, so appreciate you. Let's try to hit that parlay for BA and for everyone in the chat. I've got a 5%er later tonight. Rob and I have the joint package. It's 11, so we've got to go. But the parlay real quick, Miami first half -4.5, Tennessee full game +1. We'll see you guys back here. I think I'm going to be at a Starbucks tomorrow because your boy's hitting the road. But we'll be here to do a show tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you guys then.